Good evening, everyone. Welcome to another serving of convention tea. It's been a while since we've been on the convention circuit. Our last event that we attended and covered was San Diego Comic Con, which was a lot of fun. And now we're at Los Angeles Comic Con, which brings in a little bit more celebrity interaction. This year, we brought in the actors for Back to the Future and the Star Wars prequels, such as Hayden Christensen and Ewan McGregor. So, Los Angeles Comic Con, we've been doing this convention since its inaugural event, uh, almost like over 10 years ago when it was just like a thing at Kensha Hall, the cursed Kensha Hall of AX infamy, where people suffer from CO2 poisoning. Kensha Hall. Oops. So, to just introduce myself, if you've never checked out one of these before, my name is Cosplay Ancestor Airy. You can see me there cosplaying as our Lord and Savior, Taylor Swift, from the Tortured Poets Department set list at the Eras Tour. Um, so I'll talk more about what I cosplayed as at LA Comic Con. But if this is your first time, this is me just talking about my experiences at these events. And yeah, let's check out what LA Comic Con 2024 had to offer. So again, there's me again cosplaying as Taylor Swift in the Tortured Poets Department outfit. She does sing a song called Fortnite. It has nothing to do with the video game. So basically, let's just tell us about who we are if this is your first time checking out one of these shows. I'm Scarlet Rhapsody. We've been in the convention circuit for the past 20 years. Wow. I started this whole operation after attending Anime Expo 2000 at the Disneyland Hotel and Resort. I just was like, hey, I'm having a great time. I want to post my photos. I want to post my experience of what I thought of Anime Expo 2000. And in my old GeoCities, wow, GeoCities, um, website, I posted my convention report and I started posting more and more reports. I started attending Animagic in Lancaster, and I decided I've also attended Anime Central in Chicago. Oh boy, that's a story, just convincing my parents to get me to Anime Central. Ha ha ha. But the point being is we are one of the largest archives, largest active archives, showcasing convention coverage, showcasing convention history online, and it is owned by me. And I've been running this operation again since 2000. So that's in a nutshell who we are and what we do. And I just love covering and talking about conventions. All right, let's talk LA Comic Con 2024. LA Comic Con just took place at the usual LA Convention Center. We have a lot of folks from the anime world tuning into Convention Tea, so it's very surreal seeing a smaller. It's very surreal, kind of like seeing a smaller event at the LA Convention Center because I'm so used to the behemoth that is Anime Expo. LA Comic Con, it does take up a couple of the rooms of the convention center. It doesn't really utilize the 500 level rooms where karaoke is if you're familiar with Anime Expo. But it does make good use of the space. Everything is spread out enough that so you don't really feel all sardined in. And it's just a really, I think this is a really good fit for LA Comic Con to have it at the LA Convention Center. You have two different halls. You have West Hall and South Hall. Here you can see South Hall. South Hall has like your cosplay gathering zones. You have a lot of cosplayers just kind of like posing for photographers or just meeting up with friends because this is like the huge meetup point here in at the convention center. And I see we do have a brand new follower Adyabu. Thank you so much for following us. Thank you so much for interacting in the chat. And then also West Hall had like a lot of video games. It had like couple more artists, had a couple more dealers, and it also had like a haunted like spooky experience. We didn't get to go see that because the line was wicked long. So, but overall, good vibes. And before we get started, and before we get started, just talking about LA Comic Con, a word from one of our sponsors, Petals and Poisons. I recently became an affiliate with Petals and Poisons. This is a goth brand. It is one of my favorite goth brands. They sell teacups, they sell candles, they sell perfumes, necklaces, and guess what? If you use our code Spectre15, you can get 15% off your order. So definitely check out Petals and Poisons, link in bio if you want to see all the amazing gothic things they have, because after all, it is spooky season. All right, let's talk LA Comic Con 2024 and what was my mentality going into it. So, LA Comic Con 2024, I had two panels at this event. So some of you who've been listening to Convention Tea for quite some time, you know that I'm a part of a cosplay group called Cosplay Wrestling Federation. And this was our first time being at a Comic Con type event. So we tried actually pitching our show to WinterCon, San Diego Comic Con, but guess what? LA Comic Con was the first Comic Con to accept us, to allow us to showcase ourselves at a non anime exclusive space. So we very much appreciate that. And yeah, I had to kind of put on my Hannah Waddington pants to get us in, and I kind of like, it was very interesting when I learned that we were accepted because I filled out the form to get Cosplay Wrestling Federation into LA Comic Con. So when I found out, my plane from Los Angeles to Heathrow was landing and I was able to connect to the Wi-Fi, and then I got this notification via email saying like, oh, by the way, we accepted your panels. Like, wait, you accepted our panels? And then I was just reading more and more like, oh, you accepted not only my Y2K era panel, but you accepted Cosplay Wrestling Federation. Oh, victory. And of course, our group is very excited to perform at LA Comic Con. More on that later. I also hosted in my Y2K era at the Fangirl Diaries anime fandom in the 90s and 2000s. And that was really fun to run. And again, shout out to LA Comic Con for giving us the space to talk about finding identity and finding your people within the context of anime fandom of the 90s and 2000s. I really think this is an important panel to have because it really gives us some understanding of what was it like to find community, find your people, when we really didn't have a lot of access to the internet, and what was it like being 18 trying to navigate those spaces. So yay, let's celebrate cringe culture across all generations. And of course, I had two cosplays at this event. I cosplayed as Sailor Mars for Cosplay Wrestling Federation. Mars is one of my favorite characters to portray in Cosplay Wrestling Federation. And then, of course, like I mentioned before, I cosplayed as Taylor Swift from the Torture Poets Department in the Eras tour, which coincidentally ties in because the reason why I was in London was for the Eras tour. It's like, okay, yeah. So let's talk about what were the popular fandoms at LA Comic Con. So because we had a lot of Back to the Future guests, we had like a lot of Back to the Future cosplayers, and that made me really happy. Like made me want to like bust out my Lorraine McFly cosplay, but unfortunately I was already committed to my previous cosplays I had mentioned. But it was just really cool just seeing like a lot of Back to the Future cosplayers. And of course, we had Has-Been Hotel and Hell of a Boss characters running around the convention. This is definitely this fandom is growing exponentially. It's kind of like what the I shouldn't say younger, but I would say like what Gen Z is really into right now. I really enjoyed Has-Been Hotel, so I really have nothing against it. It's a great series. Just make sure you're age appropriate for that series because it does deal with a lot of heavy themes. And of course, because we had so many Star Wars guests from Ahsoka, from the Star Wars prequels, we had a lot of Star Wars cosplayers. Like we had like this Ronald McDonald and Mandalorian kind of crossover here. And if you look closely, he has like the Pip-Boy from Fallout, right? He's wearing it like a necklace. I was like asking him like, yeah, can you tell me what's the deal with the Pip-Boy? Because I just kind of wanted to know like more about the lore. But he answered in character like as if he was Ron McDonald, but a Mandalorian person thing. Macdalorian, there we go. He is the Magdalorian. And another section I like to mention here are surprise fandoms. Fandoms I don't expect to see at Comic Con. So we had people cosplaying from Tombstone. I'm like, wait, I just recently saw this movie on Hulu. And like at first it was funny because like my friends thought were like, wait, are they like rabbis? Like, no. I mean, I love their outfits. I dig their outfits, and I finally realized like, oh, they're cosplaying from Tombstone. And then you also had some cosplaying as Patrick Mahomes of the Kansas City Chiefs. I've recently started following football because of Taylor Swift reasons, and because of that, like I'm slowly just understanding what is football other than guys in tight pants doing zoomies around this field. And then we also had one of my favorite musical acts, Daft Punk. It just makes me happy anytime I see like Daft Punk cosplay. Like, yes, Daft Punk still lives on in cosplay. All right, before we do our day by day breakdown, I also wanted to give another word from our sponsors, Multitasky. If you use our code Cadillac Cats, you can get 10% off your order at Multitasky. Multitasky, they sell light rings such as the one you see here. It has helped me with a lot of my um, it has this light ring has helped me do my own personal photo shoots like here at the Biltmore Hotel. And if you're a Swiftie listening to this, yes, that is the location where Delicate was filmed. This is one of my favorite hotels, the Biltmore Hotel, to stay at when there's a convention in downtown Los Angeles. We didn't stay at a hotel during LA Comic Con, but this is just one of my personal favorite hotels to stay at. There's a lot of history of the Biltmore Hotel. You can like look it up. It's very interesting, and also one of my favorite places for photo shoots. So if you're like me, who likes to just set their camera up and just hit the timer on, and just like to do just self photo shoots, because you never know when it comes to photographers these days. You never know when if ever you're gonna get your photos back, or if there's any photographers willing to take photos of you. Like, I just decided, like, I'll just take this in my own hands, and highly recommend their light ring set here. Also great for office supplies too, multitasky.com. I got a lot of my office supplies off of multitasky.com for my home office, so highly recommend that too for the office geek. All right, so for starters, we only did 2 days of LA Comic Con. We only did Saturday and Sunday. Friday is usually an option. Friday, I usually don't do because I have work, and usually Friday is a fairly light day. But if you are a Back to the Future fan, Friday was a day to go because that's when they had their live panel for the Back to the Future actors. We'll get into that in a few. I just wanted to show off some of the cosplayers like on Saturday morning over in South Hall. Again, this is a huge gathering spot and a huge meetup point for cosplayers. You can also get some really nice lighting. We had really good weather during LA Comic Con, not too hot, not too cold. So if you've gone to the LA Convention Center during Anime Expo, it wasn't sweltering as it was at Anime Expo. I love that we have like Daredevil cosplayers here doing the Spider-Man meme pose, and you have like Spider-Man cosplayers like right in the background too. Also, just want to just highlight just a couple of cosplayers from Saturday. I love that we had Papa Emeritus over here. It always makes me happy seeing ghost cosplayers. Like, this isn't the first time I've seen ghost cosplay at conventions. Like, yeah, it makes me happy. And then we also have some cosplaying as a combination, a mashup of Barbie and Oppenheimer. So therefore, Barbenheimer. I just dig the pink in that. And then, of course, I always like to highlight League of Legends cosplayers because I play League of Legends a lot, and you might see me play Teamfight Tactics on my stream one of these days if I could. Yeah, I just need to figure my schedule out. You have Jinx and Savika from Arcane. I haven't seen a Savika cosplayer. I hope I'm pronouncing the name right. I haven't seen someone cosplay as her like ever at conventions. I always see like, yeah, Jinx, Vi, Caitlyn, of course, they're awesome. But like, yeah, like give this underrated character some love. Also looking forward to season 2. I will very much cry and have all the feels when Arcane season 2 comes out. I just know it. So this was like the rebroadcast of the Back to the Future panel. So when I went inside the South Hall Dealers Hall, there's like a main stage where they have like major panels being hosted, and they were rebroadcasting the Back to the Future panel that happened the day before. So at first, I thought it was just like a live feed of like the Back to the Future actors at stage. I'm like, okay. I'm like, oh, it's just a rebroadcast. Oh, sad. I wanted to be in the same room as Marty McFly, Biff, um, Doc Brown, and Lorraine. But alas, but it was really cool still hearing like their stories from behind the scenes, because while I may have heard like every behind the scenes story, I have like the Back to the Future book. I've seen multiple versions of behind the scenes of Back to the Future, but hearing Tom Wilson, the gentleman who played Biff, talk about like, yeah, I watched the when we were watching the final cut of the movie for the first time, we were like, yeah, like, is Marty gonna make it? Is Marty gonna make it? Because he was talking about that, how that tension was real towards the end. And we were also talking about, like, okay, it was kind of unrealistic for Marty to go from like 0 to 88 in that small strip of street in the Hill Valley, um, in that Valley as square. So like we were just like they're just kind of like just reminiscing about like, yeah, like these were our memories on set. These were our memories watching the premiere, and how we felt about how we felt about like the current fandom. And there you can see over there is Michael J. Fox. Poor guy. But there are a lot of signs around the convention where you can scan a QR code to donate to his fund raising money for Parkinson's disease. Honestly, I wish I had time to have got photos with Christopher Lloyd and Michael J. Fox. But again, I didn't. I wish I could have worn Lorraine McFly. But the first chance I get again to have that opportunity, I would love to have a selfie, or an essay, um, with both of them, because they're my childhood. They meant a lot to me, like growing up. And Back to the Future is my all-time favorite trilogy, and the original Back to the Future would have to be my all-time favorite movie. And yes, I did see the Broadway, the musical version of Back to the Future. I enjoyed it on the technical level, but I have my thoughts. All right, so I did a couple panels on Saturday, because I really feel that LA Comic Con, one of its strengths, it has like a lot of interesting panels to attend that also kind of get your brain kind of thinking too. This is one panel that I've been meaning to attend. It's called like 1982, the greatest geek year like ever. And it was run by these gentlemen over here. And we were just like talking about like what were some great things in popular media in 1982. One movie they really wanted to highlight was this movie called Megaforce. And if you guys are familiar with Star Wars and you've seen the Book of Boba Fett and you see those like teens on motorcycles in the Book of Boba Fett, it has that kind of vibe. So it had like this line that they played at the end of the panel, which I really thought it was like the cheesiest line ever, but it works for the 80s. So Barry Bostwick's character says to like this guy something to the effect of like, yeah, even the good guys win, even in the 80s. Yeah, we were also reminiscing about E.T. and the impact it had on its panelist. And one thing I really like that was highlighted from E.T. was the film score by John Williams. I know when we talk about John Williams, we like to cite Harry Potter, Star Wars, Indiana Jones. But really thinking about that John Williams score for E.T. is like, was just an amazing conversation that the panelists had, because it runs through like just so much emotions, and like it just really pulls on your heartstrings. Like listen to the ET score again, like from start to finish. You have like that gothic organ like at the beginning of the movie. You have that march as like the NASA people, the people who want to do experiments and take ET, like invade Elliot's home, and of course you have the main theme where they're all flying on bicycles. Like I don't know, like it was just so nice to hear someone just geek out over John Williams when it comes to scores outside like what people best know him for. But it was an interesting panel. We also talked about Gandhi. I'm just trying to think what other popular media. Oh yeah, we also talked about Tron, and we were just also comparing our feelings with 1982 Tron and like subsequent versions of Tron. So I thought this was a very nostalgic panel. It was just really cool just to hear like Gen Xers and a token millennial talk about like this era of pop culture. Highly recommend for any generation to check out this panel. I also checked out a panel that also dealt with nostalgia, themes of feminism, femininity in Barbie and The Little Mermaid. And by The Little Mermaid, it's the more recent one, the live action version done by Disney. I have my personal thoughts on the live action Little Mermaid, but it has more to do with Disney devaluing its animation history. But I thought this was a very interesting discussion panel um, when it comes to nostalgia, when it comes from like girlhood versus womanhood, when it comes to looking at these movies from a feminist perspective, and what is the difference between a feminist and a womanist. So I thought this kind of like just sparked some very interesting educational discussion. Because, like I said, I feel like LA Comic Con brings in a lot of like intellectual types of discussion that really makes you think. And even though there are points wherein I disagreed with the panelists, I believe at one point the panelists inferred that Disney Prince guys, the Disney Prince guys, are, I don't know what word I can say to use, so I won't get demonetized off YouTube, but I don't. But basically, the panel said that the Disney princes were creepy guys, and because the Disney heroines were underage, like Ariel and so forth. But in their defense, they don't exactly explicitly say the age of the Disney prince guys. I know if I say Disney princes, people might mishear that as Disney princesses. So that's why sometimes I had to use Disney prince guys. And my favorite's still Robin Hood. All right, let's talk about Cosplay Wrestling Federation. So yeah, I'm just a little bit biased here. So right after I had like all my intellectual kind of discussion panels, like it's time for wrestling. So Cosmic Clash, this was like our first time ever again doing our show at a Comic Con. So we had, um, so basically, we had American Goku and Stalker from G Gundam host a show, and everyone was going to go up against the champion of the Supernova Belt, Mr. Satan of Dragon Ball fame. I was Sailor Mars for this one, and I had a great time being Sailor Mars, and even the kids loved it too. Like, yeah, at times it can kind of get a little bit blue, kind of get little bit a little bit over the top, but hey, it's wrestling. It's part. It comes with the territory. So, there was about like six of us challenging Mr. Satan over here, and it came down to one competitor to go up against Mr. Satan, and that was Soldier from Team Fortress. And fun fact, he got this American flag from the actual Tommy Wiseau. So yeah, it was very interesting, just kind of like seeing um, Soldier go toe to toe to Mr. Satan, and guess what? Soldier actually won the title of the Supernova Belt. And of course, we have to have our cast photos. So our competitors were Mr. L, myself there is Sailor Mars, Soldier. Hidden in the back there is Ash from Evil Dead, and then we also have Alan Wake. But yeah, if you ever at a con and you see Cosplay Wrestling Federation, I highly recommend checking it out. And yeah, we also had like people like pose with us. after the show. So we had like a Dragon Ball reunion right here, including American Goku of Dragon Ball Evolution fame, or rather infamy. The convention had not had a couple DeLoreans on display, so after the show, I went over to South Hall, and they usually and not South Hall, West Hall. They usually have like some of the star cars on display, and if you paid like extra, you can get some photos with these cars. So someone brought in their custom DeLorean. Also on South Hall, they had a DeLorean. Universal Studios brought in a DeLorean, and the Pantages Theater also brought in a DeLorean. So yeah, a lot of opportunities to take photos with DeLoreans. And like I said, it was a huge event for folks who loved Back to the Future. This gaggle of Martys were just chilling here and at West Hall, and they were just kind of doing the watch pose here as seen on the poster. So I was just very happy to see like all these Marty McFly cosplayers because like it just made my childhood heart very happy. Again, I wish I had time to bring my Lorraine costume, but there is a Back to the Future event that will be held at Universal Studios. They have their Fan Fest nights. They actually were talking about that at LA Comic Con. It's like, okay, I gotta check out the Back to the Future event, and I also gotta check out their Dungeons and Dragons event. They will have anime themed events such as the One Piece and Jujutsu Kaisen event, but I'm like, well, Universal. You've had some tie-ins with Cool Summer Japan over in your over over in Osaka. Like you've had Sailor Moon attractions, you've had Evangelion attractions. Hi, this old Taku needs her fix. Just saying. I mean, Universal Japan also had a loop on the third stunt show, so there you go. And this is just a quick glimpse here at West Hall. So you had like a couple of artists, you had a couple of vendors, but it was mostly like a huge video game area where they had this huge competition for a Fortnite. And yeah, that's just us exiting LA Comic Con because we were gonna attend the very next day because my the very next day Sunday was my panel. So we end up departing LA Comic Con like at around 6 o'clock. Usually things start winding down around the evening hours. So compared to say Anime Expo, where things tend to run like into the evening hours, pretty much LA Comic Con pretty much wraps itself up around 6 o'clock, and people are already heading to their cars in the parking lot. For us, we ended up parking at LA Live. It cost us about $40, but you know what? Trying to get into any LA convention parking space on Saturday of LA Comic Con is next to impossible. And luckily, shout out to my buddy Geki who also streams. Shout out to the fact that he drove us because I probably would have had a panic attack trying to navigate downtown LA on Saturday morning. All right, before we go into Sunday, let's take a look at one of our other sponsors. Convention Tea is brought to you by YMAC Sweaters. You can use YMAC-Dame Asbal to get 40% off YMACsweater.com. So again, YMAC Sweater, it's one of my go-to places for cozy wear. We're heading into the winter months. So if you want to get your cozy autumn fix on, I highly recommend just grabbing like a cardigan, a coat for the house. Check out ymacsweater.com, link in bio. And again, you can use my code YMAC-Dame Asbal to get 40% off your total purchase. And that is quite a deal. Also, holiday presents. Hint, hint. All right, let's talk Sunday. So like I said, LA Comic Con, they had a couple of DeLoreans on display, and this DeLorean was on display from the Pantages Theater. So the Pantages Theater, like one of the shows that they'll be having this season, is Back to the Future, the musical, um, coming in, fresh. I was gonna say like coming in from London. No, the London cast is staying, but the tour is stopping by Los Angeles at the Pantages Theater. Again, I saw Back to the Future in London, and I won't give any spoilers, but as a fan, like, yeah, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed a lot of its technical aspects. Like, it is like one of the most technically advanced musicals in terms of special effects I've ever seen. Does it live up to the original? Well, it depends on your mileage. No pun intended. Um, when it came to the musical, I have very mixed feelings on a lot of the changes they made to adapt it to stage. So, because I kind of feel that there's some pivotal things that should be in there, but we can have this spoiler discussion later. But otherwise, I like the music. I had a pretty strong cast in when I saw the show in London, and I'm kind of looking forward to seeing how the audience reacts here in Los Angeles when I see this in theater. When I see this at the theater. And yeah, that's me causing as Taylor Swift right in front of the DeLorean. All right, so Sunday was a pretty light day. So it was pretty easy to get photos around the South Hall lobby. Here you got some folks from Pixar's Monsters Inc. If you're a theme park aficionado like myself, you would call these celebrities in hazmat suits. Google the history of Superstar Limo, and you'll find out why we call these celebrities in hazmat suits. One of the panels I attended on Sunday was the FMA panel, or rather, the Filipino Martial Arts panel. So they had this panel at San Diego Comic Con, and I really wanted to check out this panel because yeah, I used to practice Filipino martial arts, and I need some motivation to get back into it again. And funny enough, one of the guys on the panel, the guy with the baseball cap, Alvin, he actually trained me in Kali. Right after a lockdown, I ended up taking Kali lessons at his dojo, and he's a very well respected um, Kali person in the field. So this panel was more about like how movies, television, and video games have integrated Filipino martial arts. So they showed clips from things like The Bourne Identity. We also talked about what video games have been highlighting Filipino martial arts, and we've also just talked about like fight choreography, and each person also delivered like just some of their backgrounds in martial arts, and I thought that was very interesting to hear each of their individual stories of how they got into fight choreography, how they got into stunt work, and just kind of like how Filipino martial arts has kind of been like the backbone of a lot of cinema and fight choreography. And they were also talking about like how the Star Wars prequels integrated like a lot of Filipino martial arts in a lot of their fight choreography. I think my favorite part of this panel was like when they played a clip from The Acolyte. It's that fight, I believe, in episode 4. And they were talking like, oh yeah, by the way, this fight sequence here is the only good part of The Acolyte. You know what? I agree with you guys. Call me what you want, but I agree with y'all that the fight choreography was like the one good part of The Acolyte. I will die on that hill. So I just want to highlight some other cosplays at the event. So we have there was like a lot of mutant cosplayers at LA Comic Con. I was gonna put them in popular fandoms, but just from observation, it felt like Star Wars definitely eclipsed mutant cosplayers. But yeah, there were a lot between Sunday and Saturday. And I like this Gambit because like he had like smoke coming out of his cards. I thought that was pretty cool. You also have my buddy here, Magical Girl Marina, cosplaying as Morticia Adams. Angelica Houston was also a guest at LA Comic Con, and there was actually an Addams Family reunion panel with Christopher Lloyd, Angelica Houston, and Christina Ricci. So like I wanted to check that out, but it was at the same time as my panel on Sunday. Like, oh dang, like it would have been cool to like just check out the Addams Family reunion. And this is just my buddy Dan. Yeah, so this is just kind of like just some of the shenanigans that you would typically see here in South Hall. We had like a limbo line starting up. At one point, we had like someone playing like played like a lot of salsa music. So you had like a lot of people getting down um, in this area of the convention center. And like I said, like photo ops were like really huge at LA Comic Con because we had Ewan McGregor and Hayden Christensen. Um, Photo ops varied from like different ranges. I think like there was like several different packages with Ewan McGregor and Hayden Christensen. Again, I didn't do photo ops this time around, but I think like for future reference, I probably will. But what I've noticed is when people were exiting, they were only given like the actual photo itself, so it didn't have like a protector type of thing on it. But if I ever do one of these at a Comic Con, I'll probably just bring like an 8x11 frame just so I can protect that photo because I'm always paranoid about transporting like paper goods at conventions. So that's why I'm always a little bit apprehensive of buying posters at Artist Alley or like even prints from Artist Alley if I have no way to protect it. I did buy a couple prints from Artist Alley and they did come in a protective cover, so there was that. And some other highlights in the dealer's hall. I like how this one booth had like Fallout thematic drinks. I believe these are props. I don't think you could drink these. They also had like Fallout thematic bottle caps as like necklaces and keychains, and I thought that was pretty neat. And if you look closely in the background, they also had like Fallout and other geek related theme posters highlighting different places within fiction. My buddy Geki pointed me out that like our favorite chocolate place, Whimsy Chocolate, was present at LA Comic Con, so we had to splurge on our Whimsy chocolates. I ended up getting the lavender shortbread, which is one of my personal favorites, and I also got the cherry pie, and I also got German chocolate cake for a friend of mine because I know someone who likes German chocolate cake. And also, I wanted to highlight it's not a convention without taking some selfies. So, it's just some important people I wanted to highlight at the convention. So, the first photo you see here is me and my buddy Amber Arden. She does a lot of Disney cosplay, and shout out to her. Thank you so much for the butterfly pin and for the wisteria necklace because, of course, my handle here on Twitch is, of course, the Wisteria Witch. And then in the center is Vader's Girl. She does press for a San Bernardino based publication, and she also runs an Instagram dedicated to her obsession with Hayden Christensen. If you're a fan of Hayden Christensen, definitely check out Vader's Girl on Instagram. She's very sweet. It was very cool, like just finally meeting her in person. I think we've met actually back in February, maybe in passing, but I was like following like a lot of people at this event I went to in February, and she just happened to be one of them. But yeah, so it was just cool meeting her. She loved my cosplay of Taylor Swift, and that was nice. And if you also notice carefully, I'm wearing a Vivienne Westwood imitation because I can't afford an actual Vivienne Westwood necklace. Those things are expensive. And then over here is my buddy Casey Robin. She does a lot of art for Disney, and she also has done art of me. She actually did art of my previous Twitch icon, which was going to be my the original basis for my VTuber model. But who knows? Maybe that might be a future idea. Just other cosplays I wanted to highlight. We have Christian Bale in American Psycho, and of course because I love to highlight League of Legends cosplays because I play League of Legends. This is my favorite skin is Sivir from League of Legends. I could have gone with any of her like other skins, but I like her pizza girl skin because you throw pizzas at people and those pizzas are weapons. She's one of my go-tos. I main Sivir, and I'm just happy to see someone cosplay as Pizza Girl Sivir because that sparks joy. That makes me happy. What also makes me happy are things from the early 2000s. So we have like these, I want to say like almost Gen Alpha kids here cosplaying from Malice Miser. I actually remember these outfits. They were wearing this like Cosplay Wrestling Federation too as they were watching the show. I'm like, oh my god, like this just really takes me back to like 2001. Wow. Like kudos to you guys for keeping Malice Miser alive. And I wouldn't have expected to have seen Malice Miser cosplay at all places, LA Comic Con. All right, before we wrap things up, I just want to give a shout out to Cosplay Wrestling Federation. Definitely follow them on all the socials. They are on Twitch, they are on Instagram, and they are on YouTube. So if you're curious about the work that we do, or if you just want to see this year's show, check them out on YouTube, Cosplay Wrestling Federation, and you can check out Cosmic Clash. And you can also check out my previous work as Sailor Mars at the Sakura Con show. So yeah, definitely give Cosplay Wrestling Federation some love. And yeah, I think at this point in time, I am the Hannah Waddington of Cosplay Wrestling Federation if it was a Ted Lasso situation. Ted Lasso? I know. People are going to make fun of me in the comments for. All right. Special thanks. I want to give a shout out to Geki for being a good driver dog. Yeah, this is our hellhound of Hackney over here. Yeah, shout out to you, Geki, for also helping us out at Cosplay Wrestling Federation, videotaping the whole experience. So yeah, thank you for being my con buddy, and you've been my con buddy for like the past like 15 years or so. Yeah, we've been ride or die for like the longest time. So shout out to you, Geki. Oh hey, it's our friends the celebrities in hazmat suits again. So this is a section where I deliver some constructive criticism. I don't really have much in terms of constructive criticism for LA Comic Con. I always feel it gets better every year. I always feel that there's always programming always steps it up every year, and they always bring in like a variety of different guests, satisfying all different types of fandoms. I suppose the only constructive criticism I have was how the parking situation, just how street traffic on Saturday was dealt with. But I would say that's just more of a thing for um, LAPD or LA traffic or whomever is in control of that to figure out, because it was a mess and we really should be redirecting people and just having a better hold of traffic, because some of those drivers out there like were pretty aggro about making right turns when they shouldn't be making right turns, and they didn't give a flying fudge if they cut you off, and stuff like that really triggers my anxiety even as a passenger. But I would just say like my one piece of constructive criticism would be to like have better flows of traffic and to direct people to parking in a much better, well organized fashion. I know it's downtown LA. I know it's a pain in the butt, but there has to be a way. I also appreciated the panels. Um, I also appreciated our panels coordinator for giving us like a lot of support. I always appreciate the fact that they had like a walkthrough of what to expect. I always also appreciate that everything like to get your panels approved was done smoothly, and to get registered was all smooth. So I really appreciate the service the panels and programming team had. Final thoughts on LA Comic Con. Let's see. What are my final thoughts? It's always a good time at LA Comic Con. I Compared to San Diego Comic Con, it's a lot smaller, but I really feel that there's a lot of fan run panels here. If for like industry or like celebrity themed panels, they're usually held like at the Hot Topic stage, which is like the main stage in the middle of the of South Hall Dealers Hall. And unfortunately, there's like no chairs, so everyone's like either standing, or if you have a VIP badge, you have access to a chair. Well, I guess that's another constructive criticism. I don't like it when you have like all these main stages in the middle of the dealer's hall and there's no chairs for the general public. And that's an issue for ADA as well. So maybe that's just something to consider, to have seating for people regardless of attendee status, because like yeah, that can be an ADA issue. Final thoughts of LA Comic Con. Um, if you can't do San Diego Comic Con, this is probably the next best thing. I really like the amount of celebrities you would have access to. Um, I didn't really feel that there was a line con for anything here. Um, are a lot of voice actor guests that you can find at West Hall that are signing Funko Pops, signing DVDs, signing portraiture. So there's also that. Overall, good vibes. I tend to avoid like a lot of photographers like in South Hall, because sometimes you'll get some of the territorial like elitist photographers who think they're all that. but they're not. um, so I usually tend to avoid them. I usually have like my own go-to places for photo shoots and to get personal photos of myself at the LA Convention Center. Unfortunately, the area of LA Live where I usually like to do photos was taken up by an event, so I didn't get like some cool LA Live shots, but you know, that's okay. That's what Anime Expo is for. Haha. But overall, I would recommend LA Comic Con if you're local to the Southern California area, if you're local to the LA area, and if you just want something that where it still kind of feels like a fans for fans, but also intersects with industry as well. You got a lot of A-list celebrities here. You got a lot of voice actors from anime, um, general animation, video games, and you also have a lot going on. I always felt like there was always something to do, and I really feel that this is definitely a 2 day con. I feel like there's a lot of people who just stick around for Saturday, understandably so. Groceries are expensive, but for to really get the full enjoyment of LA Comic Con, I would highly recommend doing both Saturday and Sunday. Okay, with that said, thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you again, LA Comic Con, for providing us panels, especially with Cosplay Wrestling Federation and in my Y2K era. It's always a treat doing panels and programming at your guys' events, and we always appreciate coming back. I always appreciate making new friends. I always appreciate just reconnecting with old friends and catching with friends again at LA Comic Con. And overall, good times, good vibes. And before we wrap things up, don't forget to check my book out, link in bio. My book, The Fangirl Diaries, Finding Community in the Anime Fandom in the 90s and 2000s, comes out January 8th. You can pre-order your copy now at McFarland Publishing. And yeah, my panel did go very well. My panel at LA Comic Con is all about this topic, and I'm hoping to do this more at anime conventions. So far, only one anime convention has asked us to do this panel, and that is SoccerCon. Shout out to you, SoccerCon. We love you. And I've had a couple of Comic Cons, including San Diego Comic Con, where I've done this panel discussing anime fandom in the 90s and 2000s. So if you're an anime con, if you want us to do our panel at your event, just let me know. I'd be more than happy to be a keynote speaker at your event. And with that said, thank you so much for joining us here at the virtual cottage. It was so nice to have you for a dose of convention tea. We don't know what our next event is. Well, it's very que sera, whatever will be, will be. And with that said, don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel. Don't forget to also follow us on Twitch and follow us on all of our socials as listed in our bio. And with that said, to wrap things up, remember, the con is what you make of it. So make it a good one. And we will see you at the con.